Hello, this is your hillbilly historian coming to you from the hills of East Tennessee, from the Appalachia area, to give you the truth of history and the truth of what's really going on in this world with good grounded common sense. But anyway, what is happening in the JFK assassination? Let me tell you something. There's a senator from Kentucky. His name was John Sherman Cooper. He was on the JFK, the Warren Commission that was supposed to come out with the truth about the JFK assassination and all that. And John Sherman Cooper grew up in Somerset, Kentucky. My grandfather lived in that area. They knew each other. They were friends. Not real close friends, but they knew each other. My grandfather supported John Sherman Cooper. But John Sherman Cooper grew up there in Somerset, Kentucky. He was a very dignified, educated, common sense man of great dignity and intelligence. He went to Center College, a little school in South Central Kentucky. He played football on the Center College football team when in 1921, my God, 104 years ago, he played defensive end on that team, and they went to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and played mighty Harvard. And they beat Harvard 6-0. 6-0. Harvard had won 25 games in a row, had been unbeaten for 2 or 3 years, and Little Center College was supposed to be another win in the Harvard annals. But Little Center College went up there on their turf, held them to 0 points and beat them 6-0. John Sherman Cooper played defensive end on that team. Awesome athlete. He grew up and he got elected senator from Kentucky, and he served in a lot of other areas. He was an ambassador, and he done a lot of things for a lot of organizations. He was a very dignified, intelligent man, and we had when I was in college at Berea, early fall of 1966, we had a leadership conference up at Pine Hill, Kentucky. It used to be a private school, but then it was used for conferences, stuff like that, because the school had closed down. It used to be a boarding school. Kentucky used to have a lot of boarding schools because kids' roads were so bad, kids couldn't get to high school. So they'd go to places like Berea Foundation there in Berea or Pine Hill. But Pine Hill had closed down as a school. Berea College was having a leadership conference, and I was president of the Young Republicans Club that year, and I asked John Sherman Cooper to come and speak at our leadership conference. And the sponsor of the Young Republicans Club was Warren Lambert. He was a history professor at Berea College. And we drove down to pick John Sherman Cooper up. He flew in from D.C. We drove down to pick him up and bring him up to the leadership conference, and then somebody was going to drive him back where he could get back to Washington. But anyway, Warren Lambert and I were the only two. We went down and picked him up. He rode in the back seat. Warren drove, and we talked to Warren, to John Sherman Cooper about his attendance or his participation in the Warren Commission. This was 3 years, a little less than 3 years after the assassination. The Warren Commission had published its report that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone shooter, lone assassin, nut job, blah, 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 blah. Big Warren Commission. And basically, John Sherman Cooper told Warren and I that the reason he had a hard time going to these Warren Commission meetings, out of 94 meetings, he only went 50 times. He said he was sick of what was going on in that Warren Commission, that they were really, really covering up the true assassins of the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. And he told us, that Arlen Specter and this magic bullet theory, he said this was pure unadulterated bull. They were making up stuff. Witnesses who saw other shooters were not allowed to witness or testify. Some of these witnesses were even gotten rid of. See, Allen Dulles, and John Sherman Cooper told us this, Allen Dulles was running that Warren Commission to cover up the true assassins of JFK, which was Allen Dulles' CIA. He had been dropped as head of the CIA by John F. Kennedy, and John F. Kennedy was even thinking about shutting down the CIA. They were too dangerous, doing too many cruel things around the world, especially in the Western Hemisphere, and he was planning on shutting them down. And Allen Dulles couldn't allow this to happen. They had to get rid of John F. Kennedy. And basically, Senator Cooper was telling us that he just couldn't believe what was going on in this Warren Commission, how hard they were working to stick by this lone shooter theory, and hide the fact that it was the CIA and Lyndon Baines Johnson that was behind the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And Cooper was very honest about this. And we're not the only ones. In later years, he even told Jackie one time, when he met her, that he hoped that the real culprits behind her husband's death would one day be brought forth and prosecuted, which it's never been, But John Sherman Cooper had the inside track of the cover-up, the major, unbelievable, horrifying cover-up of the most heinous crime in American history, the murder of John F. Kennedy. And we know the CIA and LBJ and these people were behind it. The people who benefit the most are the ones who are usually the ones most likely behind anybody's a murderer. Police know this. They know it. And this thing was conducted. It was a cover-up from the get-go, the very get-go. I remember when I was in PE class that morning, when those shots took place, and they had a radio going down in the equipment room, and they hollered up that the president had been shot. We left class. We all went down there to listen to it, and they were broadcasting live from Dealey Plaza, and this reporter said there was gunfire from 3 directions. He said the first shot came from the overpass, the bridge, or the railroad overpass that went over the streets. and that shots came from behind and from the. He didn't call it the grassy knoll. That was given that name later. He said from behind the fence on this hill beside the road. And this reporter was broadcasting live. And he said there were shots from 3 directions. And he said several shots. And, but the cover-up had already been planned ahead of time. Lee Harvey Oswald said he was a patsy, and he was a patsy. And I seriously doubt if he even fired a single shot. But John Sherman Cooper disclosed honestly to a history professor and a history student from Brea College that night on that lonely ride up the curvy hills of eastern Kentucky going to Pine Hill, where he was going to speak about leadership, which he was very good at that sort of thing. But he kept his mouth shut on that Warren Commission and basically let them do what they planned to do. Allen Dulles and J. Edgar Hoover and dumbasses like Gerald Ford and people like that, the Democrats that were on there, they were covering it up from the get-go, and they did everything they could to hide the fact that the JFK assassination was organized and planned by the CIA and LBJ and these people. Because they did not like the Kennedys. The Kennedys were like Donald Trump. They were for smaller government and for abolishing useless agencies for the people. They stood for the people. And the deep state of Washington, D.C. cannot stand those who stand up for the people. They just can't stand it. They want you to stand up to the government, and their unbelievable amount of money they've got to spend every year. But anyway, John Sherman Cooper basically let us know that he did not buy into the Warren Commission report, and he also pointed out, now we never discussed this openly or published anything about it. Warren didn't and I didn't. We just kept our mouths shut about this, and we've discussed it privately a couple of times. Of course, John Sherman Cooper's passed away now, and so is Warren Lambert. But your old hillbilly historian's still here, giving you the facts and the truth of what went on in this world, and trying to help you out with truth and honesty when it comes to history. And John Sherman Cooper gave us a big dose of honesty on that, what I called the ride, from picking up John Sherman Cooper and hauling him up to Pine Hill in those in a early autumn evening, and the beautiful, beautiful hills of eastern Kentucky, those curvy roads, and he gave us a big dose of honesty about what was going on with that Warren Commission and how the cover-up had progressed, and that he had a really hard time buying into a lot of the crap they came up with. You know, the so-called concussion, and trying to say that a bullet from the back would cause the brain to go forward, and then it would have a reaction, and then the brain would blow backwards when that bullet came from the grassy knoll and hit Kennedy in the temple. And it's obvious from the Zapruder film, the first shot came through the front windshield of the limousine, and that limousine was hauled to Ford Motors right after that assassination, and that windshield was replaced with a brand new one, and the old one was crushed into smithereens. So evidence was destroyed, and the first bullet came through that windshield, and you can see Kennedy grabbed himself in the throat. That was the first shot, and the rest of the shots came, and then that shot that came from the grassy knoll blew his head backwards and blew a big chunk of his brain and skull out onto the back hood of that limousine. That's what his wife was reaching for. Jackie was reaching for to pick up his skull and brain that was laying on the back hood. You can see her reaching for it. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing the lies they came up with. And John Sherman Cooper confirmed that fact during the ride through the hills of eastern Kentucky back in the early fall of 1966. And I see my kitty cat back there in the sunroom stretching and scratching. But anyway, this is your Hillbilly Historian coming to you from the hills of East Tennessee to give you the truth of history and what really goes on out there. You have a good day, folks.